Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Dad's Influence on Child's Wellbeing. Today's webinar is co-organized by CHILD, the Center for Holistic Initiatives for Learning and Development, a research center under the Yong School of Medicine, National University of Singapore, and SunCare SG, a charity focused on the well-being of children and youth. I am Sun Xueling, your host for tonight. Now, today's webinar is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be shared with you after the event. Please feel free to pass it along to your friends and colleagues who may find this webinar useful. And you're also welcome to share your comments or questions on my Facebook page or through the Zoom Q&A chat. Now, more research shows just how important fathers are in their children's lives, impacting not just physical health, but also cognitive development and emotional well-being. This research is still developing, especially in the Asian context, but there is a growing awareness in Singapore of the influence fathers can have. And what's needed now are more meaningful conversations and support for fathers to stay engaged in ways that truly matter. Now, a recent poll was conducted with children and youths at SunCare's Lighthouse in Punggol to explore the impact of fathers in their lives. We have some findings from this poll. First, many children feel most loved when their fathers give them thoughtful gifts or offer words of encouragement. Playing with their dads was highlighted as especially meaningful, followed by engaging in sports together and having grown up open conversations with their dads. 20% also said that it would make a positive difference if their dads avoided comparing themselves to others, while another 20% felt negatively impacted when they are scolded or they feel that they're being blamed. Now, these, I think, are not unrealistic demands, and it's probably quite commonsensical to some of us as well, and they are heartfelt reflections of what children truly need. Now, tonight, we have two experts with us on today's webinar. Let's welcome Associate Professor Shefaly Shorey from Alice Lee Center for Nursing Studies at NUS Yong School of Medicine, who also serves as Vice Dean Administration at the school, and our special guest, Mr Alsen Chanamuto, Schools Engagement Manager from the Center for Fathering.
Thank you so much, Ms Sun. What an honor and privilege to be here today with you.
Thank you, Ms Sun, for inviting me to be on the panel. Such a real honor to be here to spend this evening with you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for today's panel. Now, let's dive straight into the topic. Now, Professor Shefaly, could you share with us how a father's involvement and support can contribute to a child's emotional and cognitive development? Are there any local studies that demonstrate the impact of involved fathers on children's well-being?
Absolutely. So let me bring you through some slides. And before I go in, I just want to give a bit of a disclaimer. As Ms Sun has just shared in her opening address that research on fatherhood, both globally and in local context, it's evolving. And a lot more studies being done for us to actually understand how fathers are engaging and influencing the health of their children as well as the family dynamics. So what I'm going to do in the next few set of slides, I'm going to talk about the local evidence for the past 10 years. I'm personally engaged in understanding parenthood, especially I've spent 10 years in understanding fathers' needs and how they are contributing to the family dynamics. And also most of my answers will be based on research, 3 big studies which are ongoing in Singapore. One of it probably you already have heard in the previous sessions with Ms Sun called Gusto. It is growing up in Singapore towards healthy outcomes. There are other 2 studies. One is called Espresso, which is Singapore's preconception study, as well as another big study called SG Leads, which is Singapore's longitudinal early development study. So based on all these studies, I'll be sharing with you and answering SMS Sun's question on how fathers are engaging and influencing emotional and cognitive development of the kids. And before I start, I would like to share with you a little bit of what's going on as far as fatherhood is concerned in our local landscape. Again, the list is not exhaustive, but a little bit so that we all on the same page that how fathers feel or the people around society feel about fatherhood in Singapore. So even though the dual income families are growing, both fathers and mothers are working, still fathers are seen as the sole or rather a financial provider or the breadwinner in the families. And somehow fathers feel that and it's very beautiful. I feel that in our part of the world, we have our older adults around, grandparents and all that, and father feels there's enough, caregivers around that I don't really need to engage. And in fact, fathers, I remember in their, anecdotal evidence, they will give some quotes like, Shefaly, I can't even do much because everything is already taken care. Another thing commonly seen in our local landscape is the maternity care mainly focused on maternal or newborn focused, activities. And this is something I personally now engage in. We are working as a task force now, how we can enhance our maternity care services so that fathers are more involved. And also, though the latest changes in paternity leave still needs to be addressed and understood, but in the previous year, it has been shown that fathers tend to not use the paternity leave. And even if they use the paternity leave, it is still used for not in childhood activities or engagements, more of for the other work-related efforts they put in during that leave. And something which is changing as I'm speaking, I'm still conducting some studies, and these are unpublished data, which is changing, which shows, but still, there are some families, especially coming from a socioeconomic backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds, maternal gatekeeping is real in our local context. That means moms tend to keep dads a little bit at bay and saying that, hey, you don't know really, how to bathe the baby or take care of the baby. So fathers are kind of kept. Answer Ms Sun's question on how fathers are actually contributing to child's emotional development. And this particular data here I'm sharing now, it is based on our local studies, which shows that how the fathers, again, of course, studies are now a lot more coming up and saying that fathers and their engagement should be studied right from pre-conception stage. But for today's discussion, I will keep this discussion to pregnancy, childbirth, and after childbirth involvement and engagement of fathers. And it has been shown that fathers, those who are engaged in their child's, right from pregnancy to their early childhood days, they tend to enhance child self-esteem, as well as they tend to enhance the secure environment in the house. And especially in our local gastro studies has shown that dads who are more involved hands-on during the early days of children's life, especially when those kids are growing up during the school age time, they tend to have more better emotional regulation. Especially boys, they tend to show less aggressions and tend to be more calm and empathetic. Again, the study on stress and mental health is something still evolving in our local context, but the study is a longitudinal study in Germany. In the Western context, it has shown that fathers who are more involved, they tend to buffer a child from stress, and those children, when they are grown up, especially boys in their teenage years, they tend to have better mental health related wellness. And also, if you want to study that what exactly is a cause and effect on why fathers' engagement or involvement is actually helping with emotional development, again, this is not an exhaustive list, but some of the key things which has been seen in our local context, that what has caused to that better emotional development in kids are some of the examples. For example, when father role model coping skills. Examples, when you see somebody, crossing the road in front of you, or cutting you in the queue and getting angry or frustrated, jaded, rather than saying that, but you are taking it as a more cool and calm, take on that and saying that, hey, maybe this person is in a rush, let's stay safe on the road. So such role modeling. And I often tell this to parents. Parents always ask me that, Shefaly, is this any prescription that how much time I need to spend to teach my kids and all that? I always tell them, it's never about teaching, especially in the early days of your children's life. They don't learn by teaching, they learn by watching, observing, right? So what you showcase to them, what you role model to them, that goes a long way for our kids. And also talking about our feelings, and this is something I must say it very clearly, I have seen in our local context, especially, dads are not very comfortable, especially coming from certain ethnic backgrounds. They don't feel that talking about feelings or emotional needs are something they are very comfortable with, and they sometimes feels that I'm a man, I need to showcase certain sort of emotional behaviors, but studies have also shown in our local context that if fathers are open about their feelings, they name those feelings and showcase that they are just a feeling, it's a transient thing, it doesn't mean that it affects everything around us, the children tend to be more secure in their emotional development as they grow. And also it creates a very positive environment for children to express in a safe environment about their emotional needs. So very quickly, Again, the question asked is, so how then again I can, as a father, engage or involve in my child's care that it can enhance the emotional growth of my kids? Again, not very exhaustive list, but this is something which we have seen in our local context, that fathers who are engaged, for example, being emotionally present, openly showcasing affection. And I know some fathers tend to feel that, I'm not that kind of a person who will say, I love you and all that. Normally moms do that, right? So that's perfectly okay if you feel that way. But again, openly showcasing your affection in many other ways. For example, being present when your child is under stress, and talking through those feelings with your child and being attentive. Again, I have also always asked, the fathers will come to me and I say, Shefaly, I'm doing a shift work. I'm very busy. I don't have time. Is there any prescription, like how long I need to spend time with my kid, that I can help them to grow emotionally better and all that? I always tell them it's not about quantity, it's the quality. Being present, even 15 minutes of your presence, your phones are away, you are really present and listening to your kid, and role modeling that calm and empathetic behavior, and even showcasing your own emotions. It's perfectly okay to showcase that my day was not good, I'm frustrated, but I'm now seeing you today and I'm very happy. So really creating that environment where we are openly validating each other's feelings and supporting each other and talking about feelings, naming about feelings. For example, if kid is crying, rather than saying, it's very commonly I have seen boys being told, boys don't cry, right? Rather than saying these things, I can understand this toy was something very dear to you, and let's see how we can fix it together. Or rather than putting the things or emotions under the carpet, talking about them. That's the presence dads can do. And it has been shown in our local context that dads who are engaging like this, they tend to have kids who are emotionally more bonded. And of course, even during playtime, making that excitement during the play such that it can also create a secure environment for your kids. So answering the second bit of SMS Sun's question on how fathers' presence and engagement help with their cognitive development, again, we have local studies that shows that, especially Gusto has shown these studies, which is recently published, that fathers who are more engaged with their kids' upbringing and engage in their right from diaper changing to bonding with your kids, and especially if you have young kids. I just did some series of teaching videos for antenatal program for one of the hospital, and I was asked that, can you give one tip for the young parents or especially fathers, because they can't breastfeed, how they can be more engaged with their kids? My answer is simple: skin to skin, literally putting your baby on your chest, naked chest, and that's the best way to bond with your kids. So anyway, answering the question on how, when fathers are better involved, they tend to boost learning, thinking, and even communication of kids and their problem solving. And it has been shown in our local studies that fathers who are more involved, especially the way they engage with the kids, and in my next slides I will share with you some of the ways we can engage, it helps children to grow their interest in learning, in language, and of course indirectly to the school success. And also it also engage fathers, help them to be better focused in their study. They enjoy the studies rather than looking at the grade, is the efforts, and of course build a confident child when fathers are more engaged right from their early childhood days with the kids. So again, some of the tips, these are some of the common questions asked, to that how can I then behave certain way that I can showcase that my involvement is good enough for my child's cognitive development. So again, some simple tips which have been done and shown in our local context, things like, for example, reading together, right, making a story time a routine, and especially for those busy dads. And in fact, I remember some fathers will often ask me, I don't know what to do, Prof, my kids tend to be more closer to my wife. I think she spend more time with her, so it's very natural that my kids are more bonded to my wife than me. So this is just a phase. That's not true. I'm sharing you here based on science, based on evidence, that both dads and moms are very important in children's life. It happens, yes, because of the time spent, or whichever reason. If you feel, which is not the case, that children is more close to your wife, I think what you need to do is, there's no competition. First of all, both of you have a common goal, rearing a healthy and emotionally regulated and cognitively growing well child. So what you need to do is having that routine. It's not again quantity, that setting a routine, whether it's a bedtime storytelling, reading, or even a limited screen time, rather than having a passive screen time, active screen time, what you're actually watching with your kid and using it as an educational session and exploring and teaching. Sometimes just going to even NTUC, what you're doing along the way, the color of trees you have seen or the vegetables you are seeing. So making these daily moments count, that's something daddies can engage in. And of course, assisting with schoolwork. I'm also going to openly share here that our local studies shows mothers tend to be more engaged in schoolwork, in helping their kids than daddies. I'm not sure what is the reason. Could be busy or whatever. But I will all I want to say is that daddies, this is something we need to understand, that when daddies start also paying attention to the schoolwork and all that, we give this emotional and social signaling to our kid that both mom and dad see the importance of studies, and these kids tend to enjoy their learning more than the kids where sometimes both parents are not engaged, especially in the schoolwork. And also cultivating that curiosity, right? Showing the enthusiasm in learning. Often I have seen, especially dads coming in, I don't know, nowadays maths, I don't understand in the school. So many questions they're asking, I can't answer. It's not about being an walking encyclopedia and knowing all the answers. It's sometimes even finding the answers together. And I think that's the beauty we want to inculcate in our kids, that it's okay not to know everything, but it's how we find it together. And of course, I'm guilty of that, but I'm going to put this out right here, that celebrating efforts then grades. My son is now 22 years old, but I'm one of those moms who took during PSLE leave so that, I can teach him and all that stuff. So I've done that, been there. And I thought when I started doing research, I thought a lot of damage has been done, but I'm a living example of one parent. And I've also seen many parents in my life. There's never too late, and I have seen that once we start bringing that efforts and start recognizing that efforts, the kids will know how to rise back from the setbacks. They will know that when things are not working, rather than just looking at grades, they will see themselves how they can do better for the next time. So on that note, I will hand over back to SMS Sun, and I'm really enjoying this session, SMS Sun. Looking forward to hearing the next question.
Thank you, Professor Shefaly. You've shared quite a fair bit about how dads can be involved, and also about how important the journey, the process is, rather than just the destination. So you have mentioned mothers as well, and I just wanted to probe a bit deeper, specifically on the difference between fathers and mothers' bonding styles, and how actually both are important for a child's development. Over to you.
Thank you. You have already actually answered the question that both are important, but I'm going to a little bit show, based on research, how mothers and fathers, they bond slightly differently, and doesn't mean one is better than the other, right? So generally it has been seen, especially in our, I would say, local, our multiracial society, we have seen that moms tend to bond more from a nurturing and comfort-oriented kind of a bonding style, which means more cuddles, kisses, as compared to dads. And also they tend to be very responsive to the subtle cues. And in fact, commonly I have seen dads will say that before I know what's going on, my wife is already jumping and, reaching out to my kid and all that. So somehow that's how maternal instincts are, and they bond with their kids. And also, like I said, that they are more on the routine-based interactions with their bonding style, which is from bathing, feeding, and even with the schoolwork. And however, daddies, on the other hand, they tend to bond more from a play side, play-oriented, and also more on the encouragement, on the risk-taking. For example, dads, if a child can jump from one step, they will like, okay, let's go a bit higher. So that kind of activities dads normally do, even hide and seek, pillow fights. So more on like, which helps to build kind of risk-taking and independence among kids. And mom one is more on emotional stability. And dads, especially in local contexts, it has been seen that they are less verbally expressive. Not everybody feels, especially daddies, feel comfortable, and especially from certain ethnic groups, they don't feel comfortable saying I love you and all that stuff. They feel that that's mom's role. But again, whichever way it is, like I've mentioned in my previous discussion points, that it's your presence, it's the quality of time you spend rather than what you say. How do you make your child feel? So I just want to highlight exactly what SMS Sun just said, that both styles are required. They complement each each other, and both have the one goal, which is nurturing a holistically, well-being and emotionally regulated and cognitively growing well child. And it has been shown that both moms and dads, it doesn't mean if mom doing certain way or dad's way of a nurturing certain way, one is better than the other. Both are required for the emotional, physical, and cognitive development of the child. Over to you, Ms Sun.
Thank you, Professor. Now over to Alsen, who's from the Center for Fathering. Alsen, could you share with us how do fathers influence a child's understanding of responsibility, their emotional maturity, respectful interactions, and also how do fathers shape their daughters' perception of self-worth? There might be some influence on gender roles and so on and so forth. Could I check in with you on that,
Sure.
Alsen?
That's a great question, and it covers so many things. I'll try to keep it as concise as I can. But I think in a nutshell, children really observe and internalize behaviors from their primary caregivers, that is us as fathers and mothers, right? So if we look at Bandura social learning theory, it says that children learn by watching and imitating adults, especially parents. And fathers, especially if you want to scope down just to fathers who engage in caregiving, in chores, in emotional expression, they actually help children to develop a more balanced view of gender roles, because they don't just see from their moms, they also learn from their dads about emotions. How do we balance it? I think Dr. Shefaly captured some of that in the research earlier as well. Fathers significantly shape children's understanding of gender roles and responsibilities. Research shows that when fathers are actively involved in childcare and in housework, children, regardless of their gender, whether they're boys or girls, develop a very egalitarian attitude. That means they see that roles are not gender specific. It's equality that we're talking about here, right? So whatever the father does, the mom can do, whatever the mom does, the father can do too. And the time fathers spend on housework during their children's adolescence is especially influential in promoting this, right? So as fathers from a young age, you got to show your kids, how do you do house chores? How are you responsible in the home? So that is how we kind of talk about modeling gender roles, right? Now I think about my own experience growing up. My mom was the one who did all the chores. I'm sure a lot of us growing up in probably in my generation, we saw our moms doing most of the work. Our fathers would be the breadwinners. They go out, they work, they come back. So they did all the chores, they did the cooking, the cleaning, and that was my understanding of gender roles, right? Watching my parents. My parents also did what they had observed from their parents. Of course, as times have changed and we move from single income to dual income, the roles have also evolved. So right now, my kids, they see me doing everything from mopping the floor to fixing shelves, sometimes with equal levels of frustration as well. Even dads get frustrated, right? But I want them to know that responsibility and care is not gendered. All right, everyone's a human, everyone can do the different roles. So in that sense, modeling that gender roles is important. Okay. In your question about respect and emotional maturity, I think we can talk about how values such as respect and emotional maturity is also displayed by fathers as well, and our kids pick up on that. And I think Dr. Shefaly mentioned that earlier as well. Now, for example, when my daughter sees me affirm my wife, or she sees me share decision making with my wife, or something that we men don't do very often, say I was wrong. She learns that strength and humility can coexist, right? And that's the role we're trying to teach our daughters, we're trying to teach our sons as well. And that's the kind of man I hope she will one day respect, and whether in a partner, a leader, or herself, right? So by modeling that respect, that empathy, that equitable behavior at home, fathers can teach both sons and daughters that responsibility and care are not limited by gender. And so that father-child relationship, often becomes the blueprint for future romantic relationships as well. I'm sure a lot of our parents out there are wondering, how do I teach my child to prepare, right? So when we show that relationship at home, how we treat our spouse, I think that is what our kids pick up too. So when we lose our temper at home but come back to say sorry, that's teaching conflict resolution, right? When we listen instead of fix, that's emotional intelligence. When we don't just talk about the love, we actually model how we love well at home. So I hope that answers the question quickly. Yeah.
Thank you, Alsen. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to move into a panel discussion on a topic that many parents are concerned about. And that is around screen time, and also, generally speaking, how do we promote healthy habits? So healthy habits can cover areas such as sleep schedules, diets, eating habits, and screen time, like I mentioned earlier, because I think we just walk around us, we see children, some as young as 1 year old, already very good at swiping screens.
Yeah.
Have healthy habits, establish good routines, and also through that, how do we ensure that the children therefore are using their time responsibly, and also getting into this routine of healthy habits, be it in sleep, in diet, or in the use of digital screens. Over to you. Alsen, you want to start off first?
Sure. I kind of missed the first part of your question because you got cut off. But I'm assuming you're talking about how do we model, digital well-being, right, in the house. Is that in a nutshell?
Yes. So it was a general question about healthy habits.
Okay.
And these healthy habits can range from sleep, diet, to screen time usage.
Yeah, I think it's very important as parents that we model how healthy habits influence our lives, and we can't just say limit your screen time when the first thing we do when we come back home is take out our phones and look at it and spend time hours on it, or TikTok, on YouTube, whatever it may be, right? We need to show our kids what healthy habits are. So screen time is one area of it. Even eating, for example, if we go out and we always eating unhealthily, then our kids learn that it's okay to eat unhealthily. But if we model that it's okay, we must be choosing the right kind of food, and then we model that, that's important, right? So the modeling, I think, from parents is very important. And how we go about doing it, for example, I guess one way that I do it is when I come back home, I'm very conscious of my behaviors at home to my kids because they are going to watch me. So I start turning off my phone during dinner. Not because I'm anti-tech, but because I want my kids to know that they're more interesting than anything that's on my screen, right? So that's the modeling that we're talking about. So it's telling your kid, you are worth my full attention, right? And so that's a very important message that we need to give our kids, and showing them that these routines is to help them. It's not a punishment. It's not a way to stop them from accessing the joys of life, but it's to tell them that we can do things, but in moderation. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah. Maybe I can add on to that. Yeah, Alsen, what you shared, and this the two sides of this stories. One is, of course, starting our best foot forward and having no screen times, for example, during dinner time and all that stuff. That's I'm part of the screen time guidelines which we have just introduced this year, and we have that information. But the common thing I'm hearing is practically doing it can be very hard for some parents, and especially they are very busy whole day, and that's the only time they are kind of unwinding and all that. I always tell them that if that's the case, depending upon the age of the child, why don't, even if it's a screen time example, if of course during dinner time you don't have a screen time and have engagement with your family, that's the best way forward. But even if you have to engage in a screen time, make it an active screen time. That means make it like an educational session, what we are watching. And even if the kids are like, now we have Gen Alphas and all that generations we are going in. And TikTok, you have, Alsen, I don't have a TikTok, so that shows. Yeah. But what I want to talk about is that even talking about this digital literacy with your kids, right? That what they watch on TikTok and what do they think about what's going on. So having that open communication rather than putting things. I mean, of course, we want to be the best role models for our kids, but we are also humans, right? And really showcasing that vulnerability, that I'm one of you and I'm also learning together. I think that's something also very important for us to send that message to our kids. Like what you said very nicely, Alsen, when you make mistake or you raise voice, you say sorry to your wife, for example, right? So that's exactly we are trying to do here. Over to you, Ms Sun.
Thank you. We actually have many questions coming in from participants. Some were actually shared before the start of the webinar. So I'm going to just raise a few questions and then I'll handle some of the questions that came in live through the webinar. So I wanted to introduce this concept of Generation Alpha, Gen Alpha. These are children born between 2011 to 2024. And then there's Gen Beta, born from 2025 onwards. So I just want to check in with the both of you. Are there differences in how we should approach children born in these two eras, Gen Beta and Gen Alpha? Professor Shefaly, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, I think I want to share this. I think we need to empathize with our next generation of kids. They are coming in the world of hyperactivity, right? There is so much of engagements out there, from all these technologies and all that stuff. I think one way forward. I mean, first of all, we cannot say that okay, lock everything under keys and they should not be given access to screen and all that. That's not going to happen, right? And we have already known from our screen time guidelines that screen time can be used actively for engagement and education. I think what I feel as parents of a younger generation and beyond beta generation is adaptability, looking at what is going on and pacing ourselves. I'm not saying become tech savvy, but at least tech literate, understanding. I'm openly saying I don't have a TikTok. It's just because too many distractions going on, and I'm okay with the Instagram so far. But again, as far as you and your kid, you relate to that language, and most importantly, presence, right? Understanding. We do understand that, in fact, even language is changing. SMS Sun nowadays, the way they speak, right? And it took me a while to understand even my own students, the way language is changing. But I think what we need to do is, rather than going against it, is I think embracing it and adapting it. That's something I would say is very important. Again, the science is still evolving. We are understanding this, but one thing is very clear: nothing will work when we start going against things. We need to embrace it together with our kids. And I think maybe, Alsen, you're the best person. You have teenage girls. How do you deal with such things?
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Before you go ahead, the next question I also would want to direct it towards to you. So I think you can handle both questions together.
Oh, okay, sure.
Which this is a question specific for dads, which is that some attendees have shared that dads often struggle with their own problems because they have a lot of responsibilities, and we talked about that earlier. Dads being seen as traditionally like a breadwinner role, and dads also, there are the burdens, life stresses, and so on and so forth. So what's one way that dads can support each other? Support their partners, and dads support dads as well. And then you can relate that towards, how dads can respond towards Gen Alphas and Gen Betas. Over to you, Alsen.
This is a fantastic question. I think that's the reality of life. We dads have to balance work and family as well. Moms are doing that too, so it's not an excuse to say, dads are the only breadwinners and the only ones who are doing it. So I think the main thing that we need to realize is, if we don't connect with our kids, then something else is going to connect with them. Recently I did a workshop with a group of dads. We're talking about being committed to our families, to our wives, to our children. And one way that we are being committed to them is to realize that if we don't actively father our children, something else will father them. So is it the TV? Is it the videos they watch? Is it the influencers they follow? Is it the books they read? It can be so many different things out there. And with technology right now, deep fakes and misinformation, all of these things can lead them astray very easily. So as fathers, we need to be actively involved. So we can't just say, we are busy with work. But of course, the reality is we are busy, but we can find time. I was just talking to a friend today about how I'm going to start a new campaign for Back to School with Dad, which is a campaign we do at the end of the start of the year, right? And my campaign theme is 10 minutes more. So I'm going to ask kids, like, if your dad could spend 10 minutes more with you, what would you want them to do with you? And I think every dad can challenge themselves, just spend 10 minutes more every day. And by doing that, I think that's enough for our kids. They just want to spend time with us. They just want to find ways to connect with us. And I think, work is always going to be there. Things are always going to happen. I've been going through a difficult season myself. My mom wasn't well. My daughter had an accident, and then there's still work to be done. There's still a family to take care of. And how do you do that? You still have to find time to connect with your kids. I still have conversations with my kids whenever I find time, whether it's in a conversation when I'm driving them to school, on the way back, whether when I come back home, I just say, okay, I'm going to give you 10 minutes of my time right now, and I'm going to talk to you. And I think if we can lock in meetings for work, we can lock in, meetings with our friends, then we can always lock in time that we want to spend with our kids too. And we make it a decision that we make. So that's, I guess, about dads finding time and making sure that they connect with their kids. In terms of Gen, Alpha, Beta, I think, of course, the world is evolving really quickly, and we need to make sure that as fathers, as mothers even, we need to be adaptable. Adaptability is king, right? So Dr. Shefaly mentioned that as well. We need to know what is changing and help them through those changes, because to them it's a confusing world. They're coming to it, they're learning about it themselves. And so one of our founders at Center for Fathering, Edwin Choi, likes to say, as a parent, we need to train ourselves to be unshockable. So when our kid comes and tells us stuff, when they reveal something to us, don't react in anger, don't react in a way that is going to turn them away, but listen to what they're going through, the struggles that they're having. And so whether it's Gen Alpha, whether it's Gen Beta, it doesn't matter. We just need to learn to listen, to be empathetic towards them, and also help them kind of process like the critical decision that they're making, the critical thinking skills that they need, because those are the things that I think they struggle with. So yeah, I hope that helped. Yeah.
Thanks. I've got a next bunch of questions, quite interesting.
Yeah.
Now, these are fathers who are very involved. They bring their children to doctors, they turn up for parent-teacher engagements, and they are saying that they don't feel included in conversations. When they bring the children to the doctor tells the mom about the child's illness and what they should do. When there is a PTM, the teachers end up talking to the moms more, neglecting the fathers. So the fathers want to know how they can insert themselves into those conversations. How do they get people to pay attention to them as well?
Yeah.
Over. Alsen, you want to give a shot at that?
Sure. I think sometimes we have to be very proactive in the way we partake in our kids' school activities. I think it's very natural for teachers, because I used to be a primary school teacher myself. Most of the time, you'll see moms turn up at events. You see more moms than dads. Of course, there are always some dads that will turn up. But I think as fathers, if we are proactive and we go to the teacher and say, hey, I would like to know more about my child. How's he doing in school? Now, when you show that interest to the teacher, I think the teacher will automatically realize, hey, the father wants to be involved. Let me give him more information too, right? So I think that's one thing. We need to be proactive in reaching out to the teacher, to people that we are trying to work with. Of course, I think Dr. Shefaly mentioned about maternal gatekeeping too. There's another side of it. We need to have conversations with our wives to say, hey, let me be involved. Let me take a step in this. So like with my wife and me, there's certain things that she does, there's certain things that I do. So when it comes to schoolwork, I do English, math, science. She does Chinese because I can't do Chinese, right? It is something that we talk about, we agree on. Another thing that we do is when we go for parent-teacher meetings, as much as we can, both of us will turn up for the meeting, because we want to know and show our kid too that we're interested in their education journey, right? So that's one thing. And when it comes to performances, when they're taking part, for example, my daughter, she loves singing. She takes part in choir, she takes part in Voices of Singapore, whatever it may be. I will go and attend her programs to show her that I care about what she's interested in, right? So when we take that proactive step, we are involved in it, then people will also respond in like, or in kind rather. They will say, hey, this father is really interested, let me get him involved. So in schools too, I'm sure when they see you around, my work as a schools engagement manager is really to go into schools to get more fathers, form Dads for Life groups, get them to encourage one another, run programs. And then I have seen so many fathers turn up for the first event in the school and say, wow, why haven't we been doing this more often? And then when they come and start running the programs, they get so encouraged by it. I have some fathers who not only help out in their own schools, they help me to go to other schools and propagate the Dads for Life movement too. So yeah, it's really a lot about being actively involved. And sometimes it's maternal gaping is one side, but we do have to step in as well. Yeah.
Okay, Professor Shefaly, we have a few questions from parents who share that so there is a question from a parent who says that his or her son is high functioning with slight autism. Another parent shared about a hyperactive child. So basically the parents want to understand how they can manage their children because they do not want to scare the child, but at the same time, they want to manage their children, especially in public places, and you want to know what's the appropriate ways of doing so. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Very good question. And I just want to make an opening statement here. We don't have to manage the child. We need to manage their energy level. These children tend to have, higher energy level, and they need structure in their life. We are not managing a child. This is something I want to put it very straight. It is the certain way they behave because of the hyperactivity, energy levels they have and all that. I think one of the key way to handle that is, for example, especially if you know your child better, that when you're bringing them to this new environment, for example, outside in the shopping malls and all that, and if you know that is one of the trigger for your kid, so how you can engage your kid. For example, I have seen some parents bringing those, like a building blocks or some sort of hand kind of a toy or a game that a child, not talking about screen time here, that they can engage their kids so that they are occupied. There's a structure in their life, and doesn't have to be even outside, even in the home. I have seen parents saying that my child is very hyperactive, very loud in the house, and always shouting and his way, and they have two siblings, and this is always domineering and all that. Again, it is creating then sometimes it's I have seen sadly parents talking about time out, one of the way, right? That your time out and you can't get that. For me, I always tell them, rather than doing time out, do time in. What does it mean is that when a child is hyperactivity and doing all that, and rather you also shouting and creating the whole chaos in the house, do that time in, sit in with a kid, and then go through that phase a child is going through. If they need attention, why are they loud, or what they want, really going through that feelings with them and relating with them. All they need is a structure. All they need is knowing what is coming. It's always when the change happen and all that, and when they are not occupied, there's a time available, that's when they go into this loudness or whatever, the way they behave. So that's something I want to say. It's creating that structure in their life and bringing time in to understand them rather than doing it the other way around.
Thank you. And on a related question, we have some questions around discipline. And in particular, there is a question about how, the two parents may have different thoughts about how to discipline the child. For example, one parent may support caning, whereas the other parent thinks that caning would actually foster aggression in a young child. So what advice would we give to parents who may have different ideas about how to discipline their child?
Yeah, maybe I take this question.
Yeah,
so it's very, it's not uncommon in our local context where both parents have a differing disciplinary, I would say, take on with their kids' behaviors. So first of all, rather than aggression, there is we don't have a lot of evidence on caning, but we do have evidence which shows that caning, in fact, it causes rather than aggression, fear in kids, which can have a long-term implications. But to answer the question that if one parent feel that way, then the other, not only just on discipline, sometimes also how we manage, for example, screen time, how we manage meal time. There are many times there's a differing view where one parent feel this way and then another way. And sometimes not even parents, grandparents have their own say. So all these things does cause some sort of a confusion, chaos and all that. I teach effective communication in medical school. I always talk about open and real open communication. So rather than correcting each other and confusing the whole environment, especially your kid, because they then tend to pick, oh, mom, take this side, that, they can be, they understand and observe things very fast, right? So I think what we can do is, so this is something whenever we have our parent class teachings with parents, I always tell them that take this offline, this is a time out time for parents to really speak about these things, about discipline and all that stuff, and what you both think about it. And in fact, if even you feel that, that the healthcare professions are not about always disease and all that, sometimes this kind of discussions also can be brought up front, and because this has a long-term implications on your kid's life. But in simple way answer is open communication, talking to each other. How do you both feel about this discipline? Because if one and two don't gel and kind of oppose each other, children will see that, and it may not go very well with their growth.
Okay.
So if I may add, sorry about that. I think it's, yeah, like Dr. Shefaly says, I think it's very important that we get a unified front from husband and wife when we manage discipline. If we disagree in front of our kids, really we're sending the wrong message to them. So we have to agree, on the same types of discipline. We need to have that conversation with them. But I think taking it another step further, especially as the kids grow older, I think having a meeting with the kids to agree on what are the consequences to the things that you do badly or wrongly, on the mistakes that you make. I think that's important too. So when they're younger, I don't think you can do that, having a family meeting. But as they're older, when it comes to discipline, you can actually get them involved in that discipline making procedure as well. So I hope that helps too.
Thanks. There are a lot of questions coming in. Another question that I thought I would like to highlight, it goes back to maternal gatekeeping, which was in your slides. There's an interesting question here from a participant. How can we better support and engage mothers who have low confidence in their partner's parenting abilities, even after the evidence and benefits of father's involvement? Okay, so what advice would you give mummies?
No, yeah. Thank you. I'm glad that question came about, because this is something I wanted to send a message. You see, nobody is born perfect, right? And we have to engage to get practice and get better in our parenting activities. And my request to mummies are that if you feel very concerned for whatever reason, one way is to start is to under your supervision, engaging dads. Of course, you can start in pregnancy with antenatal classes. And I must say that our antenatal class attendance rate is very low in Singapore. There are many factors to that, but that is one of the factor I can show, because dads, when don't follow, antenatal visits, don't follow antenatal classes, many a time, even holding a baby the first time, it can be quite daunting. And even after attending antenatal classes, I have conducted many of those classes. We teach on dummy babies, right? And then father will say, but my baby moved. When I learned, it was on a doll, right? So things does change, right? So my only request to mummies are, if you feel less confident about your husband's parenting, activities or the care they give, I think we can do a little supervision, because everybody have to start somewhere, right? And I hope today you have learned this, that both dads and moms, their touch, even daddy putting the baby on their chest, it has a long way in their child's development. So if we can take it that it is both of us coming together, we are a team, one team for our child. I hope this will help you to give that confidence to your husbands, who are wanting, many of them, to take part in childcare activities.
Thanks. Earlier in our discussion, we had talked about the difference in fathers and mothers' bonding styles. The next question that has come up is whether the father's role is the same for girls as it is for boys. So basically, should there be a different parenting style for girls versus another style for boys? I know Alsen had talked a little bit about gender roles earlier, but that was with regards to how we don't want to have gender stereotypes. But I think this question that has come up is that while we do not want to encourage gender stereotypes, I think parents want to know whether or not, given the unique inherent differences that may exist between boys and girls, should there be a different parenting style for the different genders? Over. Professor Shefaly?
Yeah, sure. So the answer is no. It's very direct. There's no such thing for boys. You need to guide them certain way, or for the girls, I would say to take the cue from your child. Look at your child's interest. I have seen many girls engaged in outdoor activities, and many boys tend to be like more indoor kind of games, from Legos and all that stuff. So I think one day is taking cue from that. However, even if you do same kind of activities and all that stuff, research has shown that for the boys, when both parents are engaged, and especially we're talking about fathers here, boys tend to learn about same thing. But I think Alsen has also mentioned about independence, risk taking, and all that. And the girls, they especially learn from the dads, exactly which was mentioned earlier, was that how dads they learn about responsible, respectful relationship, trusting relationship, how dads are dealing with other females around them. And in fact, it has been shown in research that how girls' relationships are in their adulthood, a lot more it has been shown how their dads are behaving with the different genders when they were young. So I think think that's something you need to take note, rather than my parenting style need to change. Parenting style need to not change, just be a present parent, but follow your kids' lead.
Alsen?
Yeah, I mean, speaking as a father of three kids, I have one girl and two boys. All three of them are different. My parenting style generally is the same. My wife and I, we agree on how we want to raise our kids, but each child has a different temperament. The way they respond to the way we discipline them, the way we, the way they respond to different things that happen to them is different. But that doesn't mean that I change the way I parent. Like I still keep to the same values. I still teach them the same ways. But of course, when it comes to, for example, like my daughter, she's very easy when she's hurt, when she's upset, she'll come and talk to me. All she needs is to hear daddy's voice telling her something nicely, comfort her. She's good to go. My second boy, on the other hand, he tends to cry. He needs to let it out. I'll give him the time to do so. So every child is different and unique, but the parenting style I don't think essentially changes. But we just need to learn, be aware of what their temperaments are like, and then kind of cater to that instead. Yeah.
Okay. There is an acknowledgement by some of our attendees online that our parenting practices can be influenced by our own childhood experiences.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that easy to forget or to change, because we sometimes can just revert to a certain mean, or median that we are used to. So what advice would you give to parents? Because they may be listening to the webinar, reading up, be really in touch with the latest research, but they end up having to, come to terms with it within themselves, because they are brought up a certain way, and they are in a way burdened by their own experiences. So what advice would you give to these parents?
Yeah, very, very beautiful question. And in fact, I want to acknowledge that. If you see in my slides, I said that I was one of that parent who focused on grade and even took leave during PSLE and all that, right? Now I know that that was not really required. Coming to your question, that common, that how we been taken care or reared during our childhood, that has a long lasting effect on how we nurture our next generation. However, we also need to know about that when we are attending, for example, webinars like this, or when we have read something and all that, we also have these reflections. I think that's very important as a parent to understand that this is, I know, evidence, but I have been doing these things certain way, probably because I was brought up certain way. So you see, how does it reflect on your kid? If you feel that your kid is exactly following the values you want him or her to grow up with, you're doing a great job. But if you think that something needs to be changed, like always, it is never too late. We are not talking about here brain imaging and all that stuff. I remember my very good friend, Dr. Shang-Chi, talk about screen time and all that. I'm talking about is here, we are talking about behaviors, right? So it's basically, if you think that something you didn't enjoy or don't wish to do certain way, have reflections. And like what Alsen said, if your kid has grown up, like what I did for my child after PSLE, I have told him that it's more important for him to learn and enjoy learning rather than the grades. And today he's, I think, doing reasonably well. And most importantly, he's a happy child. And most importantly, very reflective child. And he know how to bounce back from his setbacks. So again, I'm not perfect. I'm still learning with him, right? So this is the perfect example I'm giving you. Despite of doing research, I do make mistakes also, but I learn, reflect, and move on together with my family.
Alsen?
Yeah, I totally agree with Dr. Shefaly. I think we need to celebrate the legacy that our parents have left for us, so we can take the good stuff that we've taken from them, and those things that we know that are not so good, we can remove them, change them, improve upon them, right? I think that's important that we do that, not negating all the good things that we got from our parents too. So that's a decision that we must make too. And also I guess we also need to realize that when we come into a family, our wives bring in their background, their stuff too, and we need to learn how to then say, okay, these are the good stuff from my family, these are the good stuff from your family, let's put them together, add it to our family, make it even better, right? And that's how we can improve upon our families. And it's not, I guess it's hard sometimes. We may fall back into the things that we've grown up on. I know it's very easy for us to do that, but I think as we continue to persevere and pick ourselves up when we make a mistake, and like Dr. Shefaly said, right, it's okay to make mistakes. We can even show our kids the mistakes. Sometimes we need to have those conversations with our kids too. Hey, I said this to you the other day. I know it hurt you, but that's something that grandpa used to say to me, or grandma used to say to me, and it's not right, and I shouldn't be saying that to you, and I want to do things differently. And that's how we kind of also model great values to our kids in the way we change how we were raised, and put all the good stuff that we want into our kids. Yeah.
Actually, on that note, right, I'm going to segue into a question that has come in, because we're talking about the legacies, that we bring bring forward. There is a question about how do I politely inform my in-laws, how to inform them not to interfere with my preferred methods of parenting. So while we try to negate all the stuff that comes with our own experiences, we may have different approaches with our children. So how do we manage the wider caregiving relationship? Because right at the start, I think Professor Shefaly, in your slides, you've really mentioned that there are many other caregivers around. So how do we navigate this landscape? Professor Shefaly?
Sure. Yeah, this is a very, very common question I often hear, right from confinement practices to the child rearing, right? We have a differing views and all that stuff. Again, there's no one answer to that. My answer is that this is not science-based, certain things we do, right? Of course, during confinement practice, it's very easy to say, don't take shower and all that. This is not science-based, so I can actually take a shower, and I can come in and tell the older adults, if grandparents come, mother-in-law and all that, that this is, better for me or not better for your daughter-in-law and all that stuff. That's very easy. But when it comes to child rearing and all these things, right? So they have all of us around probably doing well, and they will say that, who are you to now tell me? I have 3 kids in their doing all well and all that. Today you are telling me I need to sing during your pregnancy to the kid and all that stuff, right? I often hear all these things. Again, it may sound cliche, but some things are very, very common, which is really openly communicating. And sometimes really, out of due respect, I have very beautiful in-laws. Sometimes, like what Alsen said, right? We have different families coming in. We need to get maybe our husbands involved so that we remain respectful in that communication, and really telling them that we are doing it. We know, first of all, telling them, we know you have a heart for our kid. We are all working for a same person to do well in life, right? So openly communicating that how certain things they are learning from science. For example, today we have seen when daddies are more involved, generally been told, right, no, you focus on work. Tomorrow you have work. You sleep in a different room. I've even seen fathers being told to sleep in a different room so that, he doesn't get disturbed. But no, these things shows that the child need to hear daddy, feel daddy. So these things, I think, bringing in with our older adults, openly speaking about that, and getting both parties, husband and wife, coming in to speak the different side of the parents, grandparents. I think that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, if I may add, I think choosing your battles wisely is a way to move forward. Like some things, it's okay for the grandparents to just, let them get away with it, let them do it with our kids. It's not going to affect them too much, just let them do it. But if you know that it's fundamentally going to be damaging to your kids, then you can explain to them. I think that's important. At least that's what I've learned. So, for example, I have a story. I always share this with people. I didn't want to give my kids any devices till they were much older, and when it wasn't necessary. Then my father-in-law decided to buy a tablet for my girl when she was 7 years old, which I felt was just too early. But he already bought it for her as a Christmas gift. I can't then go and tell my father-in-law, oh, you can't give this to her. It's not very nice, right? So then I just said, okay, it's fine. Grandpa gave this to you. Let's put some boundaries. Let's set some rules so that you can only use it maybe, an hour a day, that kind of thing. So I had to work with the what's been thrown at me. And I know that at the heart of it is he wanted her to be digitally savvy. That's what the grandpa was thinking. And so he's thinking about her good, right? So that's why I say choose your battles wisely. Yeah.
Okay, we are exactly at 9:30. So thank you everyone who joined us for today's webinar. To Professor Shefaly and to Alsen, thank you for sharing your valuable expertise, not just when it comes to research, but also your own stories, because you're both active parents. And to all who have joined us today, I think we've all heard about the benefits of active fathers, how fathers can be involved. And I think it now comes back to us as to how we can support one another, whether or not we are spouses and wives and we want to support our husbands, or we are thinking about how to bring in the larger caregiving community together to support our children. I think we're all united in our desire to have our children grow up happy and healthy. So thank you again for joining us tonight. We've come to the end of the webinar. Please fill up the post-event survey form as you leave, and the chat room is now open. Please feel free to leave your comments in the chat room. And just a little advertisement for our next webinar. It is on the 11th of July, 2025, and it is about the fussy eater dilemma, as we think about how we best work with our children when it comes to their dietary preferences and habits. So follow us on our Facebook and you'll be updated once the registration for that webinar is open. So thank you for joining us tonight. Have a great evening ahead. Thank you, everyone.